1943, World War II. Across Europe and North Africa, the fighting is relentless. American troops are pushing Axis forces back across deserts, mountains, and shattered cities. And with every battle, thousands of German soldiers are captured. By the middle of the war, the United States faces an unexpected problem. It has too many prisoners of war. Britain is overwhelmed. North Africa is unstable. Transporting prisoners back into active combat zones is risky. So the US makes a decision that would have seemed unthinkable just a few years earlier. German soldiers, many of them Nazis, will be shipped across the Atlantic and held inside the continental United States. By war's end, more than 425,000 German POWs would be held in America, and some of them would end up in a place they never imagined: Alabama. For the prisoners, Alabama is not a name. It is an idea, a dark one. Most have never met an American. Many have grown up on propaganda films portraying the US as brutal, racist, violent, and lawless. They expect revenge. They expect starvation. They expect beatings. Some expect execution. The journey alone reinforces their fear. Weeks at sea, in crowded transport ships, guards everywhere, unknown destination. When the ships dock, the prisoners are loaded onto trains. The windows are covered. The heat is intense. The air is thick. When the doors finally open, the prisoners see pine forests, red dirt, and wooden barracks. They are told they are in Alabama. To many of them, it sounds like exile. One of the largest POW installations in the state is Camp Opelika, near Auburn. Others are sent to Camp Aliceville, Camp Shelby Spillovers, and satellite labor camps across rural Alabama. The prisoners brace themselves. They are certain the treatment will be harsh. Instead, something strange happens. Nothing happens. The guards do not beat them. The guards do not insult them. The guards follow rules. Strict ones. The prisoners are issued beds, blankets, medical exams. They are fed meals that, by wartime European standards, are astonishing. Meat, bread, coffee, enough calories to work, enough calories to live. Some prisoners assume it is temporary, a trick, but days turn into weeks, and the brutality never comes. The Geneva Convention governs POW treatment, and unlike Nazi Germany, the United States follows it closely. Not out of kindness, out of strategy, Germany holds American prisoners too. Any abuse in Alabama could mean retaliation in Europe, so the system is enforced rigorously. Soon, the prisoners are put to work, not in factories, not in armament plants. They are sent to farms, lumber operations, road crews, and food processing facilities. Under guard, but lightly guarded, often with rifles slung, not raised. For Alabama farmers, the arrival of German POW labor is surreal. Many local men are overseas. Labor shortages are severe. Now, enemy soldiers are harvesting crops and repairing fences. At first, there is fear, then confusion, then something else, normalcy. The prisoners work, they sweat, they complain about the heat. They joke among themselves, and gradually, something happens that neither side expected. They talk. Farmers begin speaking to prisoners through broken English and gestures. Prisoners learn American slang. Some discover that the people they were taught to hate live lives not so different from their own. They have families. They struggle. They argue about politics. They want the war to end. The prisoners notice things that unsettle them. There is no portrait of Hitler on the walls. No raised arm salutes. No fear when guards speak freely. They hear American guards criticize their own government. This alone is shocking. In Germany, such talk could mean prison, or worse. Then there is the matter of race. Alabama in the 1940s is deeply segregated. German POWs notice it immediately. They are confused. Some are disturbed, others are uncomfortable when they realize that, as enemy soldiers, they are sometimes treated better than Black Americans. It challenges everything they were taught. Inside the camps, the US Army monitors ideology closely. Hardline Nazis attempt to enforce loyalty. Some intimidate others. In a few cases, violence breaks out between prisoners. The Americans respond decisively. Ringleaders are isolated, transferred, watched. Most prisoners, however, settle into routine. They attend classes, English lessons, math, even college-level correspondence courses. Some camps host orchestras, theater performances, art exhibitions. In Alabama, for many prisoners, the most shocking moment comes not from kindness, but from trust. Some work details operate miles from camp, sometimes with only one guard, sometimes none. They are told to return at sunset. And they do, because escape makes no sense. They are thousands of miles from Germany. They do not know the land, and for the first time in years, they are not starving or afraid. Letters arrive, mail from home, and mail from American civilians, church groups, local families, women who write out of curiosity, sometimes sympathy, sometimes loneliness. The war feels distant here. As 1944 turns to 1945, rumors spread. Germany is losing. The prisoners hear about Normandy, about the Eastern Front collapsing, about cities destroyed. Some refuse to believe it. Others already know. Then, one day, the news becomes official. Germany has surrendered. The war in Europe is over. Celebrations erupt outside the camps. Inside, the mood is complex. Some prisoners are relieved. Some are ashamed. Some are terrified of returning home. They have heard what Germany looks like now. Ruins, hunger, occupation. In Alabama, something unexpected happens. Some prisoners ask a quiet question. Do we have to leave? They have worked with farmers, shared meals, learned English. Some have formed relationships that will last decades. After repatriation, many former POWs will write letters back to Alabama. Some will return as immigrants. A few will settle permanently in the United States. The men who arrived expecting brutality leave with something else. A memory that conflicts with everything they believed. That their enemy followed rules. That captivity did not mean cruelty. That the world was more complicated than propaganda allowed. Today, most of the camps are gone. Fields reclaimed the barracks. Roads run where guard towers once stood. But in Alabama, local archives still hold photographs. Smiling prisoners. Work crews. Christmas celebrations behind barbed wire. The story is uncomfortable, not because it denies the horrors of Nazi Germany, but because it reveals a truth many wars try to hide, that humanity can exist, even between enemies. Nazi POWs came to Alabama expecting brutality. What they found was something far more unsettling. A mirror, 1943 to 1944, Alabama. Once the shock of arrival fades, routine takes over. For the German prisoners, this routine is not what they imagined captivity would be. Each day begins early. Roll call, breakfast, work assignments. Everything is regulated. Everything is logged. And everything follows rules the prisoners were told America would ignore. Meals become a daily source of disbelief. The Geneva Convention requires POWs to be fed the same rations as American soldiers. And the United States follows it. That means meat several times a week, fresh bread, coffee, occasionally desserts. Many prisoners are eating better than their families back home. Some hide food at first, expecting rations to be cut. They never are. Medical care is equally unexpected. Doctors treat prisoners the same way they treat American troops. Injuries are cleaned. Diseases are treated. Dental work is done. No interrogations. No punishment disguised as treatment. For men raised under a system where authority is feared, this is deeply unsettling. Work details become the center of daily life. Alabama's farms are desperate for labor. Cotton fields, peanut farms, timber operations. German POWs are sent out in groups. They work long hours in brutal southern heat, but they are paid. Not much, but enough to buy items at camp canteens. Soap, extra food, writing supplies, even musical instruments. At first, the prisoners assume wages are symbolic. Then they realize the money is real, and it changes everything. Some farmers begin treating POWs as hired hands rather than captives. They eat lunch under trees. They talk about crops, weather, families. The war is rarely discussed, not because it is forbidden, but because no one knows what to say. Language barriers slowly fall. German prisoners pick up English words. Farmers pick up German phrases. Sometimes communication is just gestures and laughter. Sometimes it is silence, but fear fades. Inside the camps, cultural life expands. Prisoners organize orchestras, choirs, plays. One Alabama camp hosts a full theatrical production using handmade costumes. Another organizes a soccer league. American guards attend matches. They cheer, sometimes for the Germans. This is not kindness. It is policy. The US military believes idle prisoners are dangerous prisoners. Structure prevents unrest. Culture prevents violence, and it works. But not all prisoners accept it. Hardline Nazis attempt to enforce loyalty. They intimidate others. They hold secret meetings. They punish those who appear too friendly with Americans. In one Alabama camp, a prisoner is murdered by fellow Germans for being labeled a traitor. The US Army responds immediately. Leaders are isolated, transferred to stricter camps. Surveillance increases. The message is clear. America will not allow Nazi authority inside its camps. For many prisoners, this is the first time they see Nazism challenged openly, without fear. They watch American guards speak freely, argue with officers, disagree without consequence. This alone begins to unravel years of indoctrination. Then there is Alabama itself. Segregation shocks the prisoners. They see black Americans barred from restaurants, forced to use separate facilities, and yet black American guards sometimes outrank them. Give them orders, carry authority. It confuses prisoners who were taught rigid racial hierarchies. Nothing fits the ideology they were raised on. As months pass, the camps feel less like prisons and more like strange, enclosed towns. Men mark calendars, celebrate birthdays, hold religious services. Time slows, and for the first time since capture, some prisoners think beyond survival. They think about after. Mail becomes lifelines. Letters from Germany describe bombings, starvation, loss. Entire neighborhoods erased. Prisoners read these letters in Alabama sunshine, surrounded by food and stability. The contrast is painful. Some feel guilt. Others feel relief. Many feel both. Rumors of Germany's defeat grow louder. News filters in through guards, through radios, through newspapers used as wrapping paper. Some prisoners deny it. Others already know the truth. They just haven't said it out loud yet. By late 1944, escape attempts stop almost entirely, not because guards are strict, but because escape makes no sense. Where would they go? Who would help them? And what are they escaping from? Exactly. For some prisoners, Alabama becomes the place where belief dies. Not belief in Germany, belief in what they were told the world was. They arrived expecting brutality. They found routine. They expected hatred. They found indifference. They feared cruelty. They encountered rules. And rules, it turns out, can be more powerful than revenge. But the war is not over yet, and Alabama will soon face a question it never expected to ask. What happens after the enemy is no longer an enemy? Spring 1945. Alabama. Germany is collapsing. Cities burn. Rail lines are shattered. Entire armies surrender without firing a shot. Inside Alabama's POW camps, the news arrives slowly but unmistakably. Hitler is dead. Berlin has fallen. The war in Europe is over. For the prisoners, celebration feels inappropriate. There are no parades, no cheering, only silence. Because victory for one side does not mean freedom for the other. They are still prisoners. And now they are prisoners of a country that never became the monster they were warned about. The camps change overnight. Nazi symbols vanish. Armbands disappear. Salutes stop. Some men destroy personal items tied to the regime. Others keep them hidden, unsure what the future holds. American guards loosen their posture, but not their rules. The wire stays up, the towers stay manned, the gates stay locked. Re-education begins, not with force, not with punishment, with information. Prisoners are gathered for film screenings, real footage, liberated concentration camps, mass graves, starving survivors, evidence that cannot be dismissed as enemy propaganda. Some prisoners walk out, others watch in silence. A few break down. Years of belief collapse in minutes. American officers lead discussions, not lectures, discussions. They allow questions, arguments, denial. They do not demand agreement. They demand attention. And that is far more unsettling. Many prisoners write letters home, then realize there may be no home to return to. Entire towns no longer exist. Families are missing. Postal systems are gone. For the first time, captivity feels safer than freedom. In Alabama, something unexpected happens. Local communities begin to notice when prisoners are gone. Work crews shrink. Farms struggle. Businesses lose labor. Some farmers petition to keep POWs longer, not as prisoners, as workers. As people, the requests are denied, but the sentiment remains. Guards form attachments they never expected. They've shared meals, jokes, years of routine. Some guards feel uneasy about eventual repatriation. Others feel relief. Everyone feels uncertainty. By late 1945, transport lists appear. Names, numbers, destinations. Prisoners pack quietly. They trade belongings. They write final letters. They give away canteen money. Some shake hands with guards. Some can't look them in the eye. Departure day is restrained. No speeches, no ceremony. Trucks roll out of Alabama camps. Men who arrived as enemies leave, as something harder to define. Many prisoners return to a Germany they do not recognize. Ruins, occupation zones, hunger, political chaos. Some struggle to reintegrate. Some carry American habits with them, ideas that don't fit easily back home. A few eventually return to the United States. Legally, voluntarily. They settle in towns not far from the camps that once held them. Years later, veterans recall Alabama as a turning point, not because it was pleasant, but because it forced comparison between propaganda and reality, between fear and experience, between what they were taught and what they saw. America never intended to change these men. It only intended to control them. But control, exercised through law instead of cruelty, did something unexpected. It exposed a contradiction. The prisoners arrived expecting brutality. They left carrying doubt. And doubt is dangerous to any ideology. What happened in Alabama wasn't mercy. It wasn't forgiveness. It was something far more unsettling. It was restraint. And for many former enemies, that restraint reshaped how the war would be remembered for the rest of their lives. Post 1945, the war is over. The POW camps in Alabama empty quietly. Barbed wire comes down. Guard towers are dismantled. Barracks are sold, burned, or left to rot. Within a few years, farmland covers the footprints of captivity. Most Americans forget the camps ever existed. The story is inconvenient. It doesn't fit clean victory narratives. It complicates the idea of enemies and justice, so it fades from memory. For former prisoners, however, Alabama never disappears. Decades later, letters still arrive in rural towns, written in careful English, sometimes shaky handwriting, sometimes typed. They thank farmers, ask about crops, ask about families, ask if the old camp road still exists. Some former POWs return as visitors. They walk through fields where fences once stood. They stand where towers once watched. They bring children. They point to places that no longer exist. And they tell stories their children never expected to hear. Historians eventually uncover records, payrolls, medical logs, camp newspapers, photographs. They reveal a system that functioned not on kindness, but on rules. Rules that were followed even when hatred would have been easier. The Alabama camps become case studies in military academies, in ethics courses, in discussions about POW treatment and modern warfare, not as a moral victory, but as a warning. Because the treatment worked, not because it was humane, but because it was disciplined, the men who arrived expecting brutality were denied the satisfaction of martyrdom, denied proof that the enemy was evil. Instead, they were forced to confront something far more destabilizing: normal life. Today, the world still debates how enemies should be treated, what restraint looks like in modern war, whether rules matter when emotions run high. The Alabama POW camps offer no simple answers, only uncomfortable evidence. They show that cruelty is not inevitable, that hatred does not have to be returned in kind, and that sometimes following the rules does more damage to extremism than breaking them ever could. Nazi POWs came to Alabama expecting brutality. What they found was something harder to fight, a system that refused to behave the way they were told it would. And in that refusal, the war continued long after the shooting stopped. Inside the minds of men who were forced to rethink everything they believed. War teaches hatred. Alabama taught restraint. Do you think this kind of treatment could ever work today? Comment below. Subscribe to WW2 Studio for documented World War II stories you won't hear anywhere else.